Imagine this. I'm finally moving out of my nightmare HOA neighborhood. Boxes piled high, heart racing with freedom. When out of nowhere, HOA Karen storms over and calls the cops, claiming I need permission to leave my own home. Little did she know, my son isn't just your average kid, he's an FBI agent. And he's about to turn her world upside down. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, because you won't want to miss the full story of how HOA Karen's obsession with control went completely wrong. Trust me, every second is worth watching. From the very first moment I decided to leave, Karen was on edge. She had been monitoring my house for weeks, questioning every repair I made, every guest who entered, and even how I decorated my lawn. Her obsession reached its peak when I submitted my moving notice to the HOA, expecting at most a few passive-aggressive emails. Instead, she stormed into my driveway, waving her phone, insisting that I needed official approval to leave. I had moved out before in other neighborhoods, but this time, Karen's reaction was a clear warning that she wasn't going to let go quietly. I tried to keep calm, explaining my departure was my legal right, but she would not relent. Hours later, sirens blared as police officers arrived, summoned by Karen herself, and I could feel the tension mounting. She provided them with what she claimed was evidence that I had violated HOA rules by failing to coordinate my move-out schedule with the HOA board. And though it sounded absurd, I knew I needed to stay composed. While they questioned me, Karen kept hovering, her smug expression making it obvious she thought she had me trapped. But I wasn't as defenseless as she imagined. Unbeknownst to her, my son had been quietly tracking her online harassment for months. Within minutes, he appeared at the scene, using his FBI credentials to calmly request information, review her filings, and methodically dismantle her claims. Karen's confidence faltered as she realized her victory might not be so certain. The tension in the driveway was electric, every eye on us, every heart waiting to see who would emerge victorious in this suburban standoff. As the officers left, clearly aware that Karen's complaints were frivolous, I began to pack the last of my belongings, the shadows of her furious glare following me. Little did she know, the real consequences were only beginning. By the next day, Karen escalated her game. She began filing formal complaints against me with the HOA board, documenting every triviality she could find, from mismatched siding colors to allegedly unauthorized yard decorations. The HOA responded with notices demanding immediate attention, but my son had already anticipated her moves. Using his experience in federal investigations, he compiled a detailed dossier of her harassment history, emails, and social media posts that documented a clear pattern of obsession and misconduct. I watched from the new house I was moving into, knowing Karen's web of control was unraveling thread by thread. Meanwhile, Karen went door to door in the neighborhood, painting me as the problematic resident trying to skirt HOA rules, rallying neighbors to support her cause. Her arrogance blinded her to the fact that in every conversation, my son was quietly recording her statements, collecting evidence she would never suspect could be used against her. When I thought she had reached her peak audacity, she attempted to escalate further, sending certified letters claiming she would legally prevent my moving van from leaving the driveway. But my son's meticulous planning had already put safeguards in place, including legal counsel and federal notifications, which turned her threats into empty gestures. I could feel a strange satisfaction knowing that Karen, who thrived on intimidation, was finally facing resistance she couldn't easily overpower. The standoff was far from over, but momentum was shifting, and I felt a renewed sense of hope. Then came the day Karen crossed a line she couldn't come back from. She called the local media, attempting to spin her narrative, accusing me of harassment, illegal modifications to the property, and even suggesting I posed a threat to the neighborhood. This move, meant to intimidate me, backfired spectacularly. My son, using his FBI training and contacts, alerted local authorities and media representatives of her pattern of harassment, providing indisputable proof of her behavior over months. The narrative flipped instantly, and the media began to scrutinize Karen's obsessive tendencies. Neighbors who had supported her out of fear started to question her credibility, and for the first time, Karen's authority began to crumble in the community she had long dominated. Meanwhile, every move she made was documented, and my son's strategy ensured that she could not claim ignorance of the consequences. Her calls to the HOA became desperate, her emails increasingly frantic, and the once smug demeanor dissolved into panic. It was surreal to watch. The woman who had tried to control every aspect of my life was now scrambling, unable to regain control, and aware that her actions might have legal repercussions. The tension escalated to a point where she attempted to file formal charges against me again, only for them to be dismissed almost immediately, her own misdeeds and obsessive behavior thoroughly exposed. I felt a mix of relief and vindication, knowing that the long months of harassment had finally reached a turning point. The final chapter unfolded with an intensity neither of us had anticipated. Karen, realizing she was losing her grip, attempted to force an emergency HOA meeting, aiming to publicly shame me and manipulate the board into siding with her. But my son had anticipated every move. Using his access to legal and federal resources, he attended the meeting covertly and presented evidence of her harassment in a manner so meticulous and undeniable that the HOA board had no choice but to reprimand her formally. They imposed strict restrictions on her interactions with residents, and any future attempts at harassment were to be considered legal violations with immediate consequences. Karen's influence in the neighborhood, once formidable, evaporated almost overnight. I was finally free to move completely, and the neighborhood that had felt like a prison now seemed oddly quiet without her looming presence. Even as I settled into my new home, I knew the ripple effects of this battle would be felt for years, a stark reminder of what happens when obsession meets accountability. I could see the lesson clearly. Underestimating the consequences of harassment, especially when the other party has both courage and skill on their side, can turn any power dynamic upside down. Karen's reign of control had ended, and the freedom I had fought so hard for was mine at last. Secure in a new home, surrounded by peace, and with the satisfaction of justice having been quietly and effectively served. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications, because there are plenty more wild HOA and Karen stories coming your way, and you won't want to miss a single one of them.